There's a moment, usually quiet, when a man begins to wonder, do I still hold that spark? Not the loud kind, not the youthful chase, but the kind of presence that makes someone pause and look again. You may not see it in the mirror, but the signs are already showing in her eyes, her time, and the silence she chooses to share with you. So here's the real question. What if you're more attractive now than you've ever been simply because you stopped trying to be? Part 1. She feels safe with you, and that's where attraction begins. Attraction doesn't always start with a spark. Sometimes it starts with silence, with a room full of noise, and you being the only one not trying to impress. You're not the loudest man in the room. You don't chase attention. You don't fill silences with bragging or force a laugh to be liked. And yet, she finds herself drawn to you. Why? Because with you, she feels safe, and that's rarer than beauty, status, or charm. Let me take you to a scene that plays out more often than you think. You're at a cafe. She's sitting at a nearby table, maybe scrolling through her phone, maybe lost in her thoughts. You don't approach, you don't interrupt, but you notice her glance not once, but again, not with curiosity, but with comfort, because something about you calms the room. Maybe it's the way you sit relaxed but grounded. Maybe it's the calm in your eyes. Maybe it's the quiet confidence that says, I'm not here to prove myself. I already know who I am. That's the beginning of emotional safety. And for women, especially those who've navigated years of pressure, judgment, and emotional volatility, safety is attraction. You don't rush her words. You don't interrupt with opinions. When she speaks, you listen, really listen, not to reply, but to understand. And that changes everything. Most men want to impress. Few men want to witness. But when you look at her with presence, not scanning her body, not trying to crack the perfect joke, just being fully there, she feels it. In her breath, in her nervous laugh, in how her shoulders lower, as if finally allowed to exhale. And what's fascinating is you don't even realize you're doing it. You've lived enough to slow down. You've been through enough to stop pretending. You've made peace with your flaws and carry yourself like someone who doesn't need to win a woman over, but welcomes the ones who see clearly. That's magnetic. Not flashy, not loud, but felt. Women crave that energy because it's so rare. It's not what a man wears, though style matters. It's not what he drives or how much he earns, though ambition has its place. It's the way he makes her feel in his presence. And when your presence says, you're safe here, you can be soft, you don't need to perform, that's when her walls come down. That's when connection begins. And maybe, just maybe, that's when she starts to wonder not how to impress you, but how to stay near you. Part 2. Your style speaks before you even say a word. Before a single word leaves your lips, she's already seen something. It's not your height, not your age, not even your physique. It's how you wear yourself. There's something magnetic about a man who dresses with intention, not for validation, not to impress, but because how he presents himself is a reflection of how he moves through the world. You may not notice the details, but she does. She notices the clean lines of your shirt, the subtle contrast in colors, the fit of your jacket that doesn't try too hard, but says, I know myself. She notices the soft scent of your cologne, not overwhelming, but memorable. She catches the faint shine on your shoes, the way your beard is trimmed or your hair is effortlessly neat. And what that tells her before you even speak is this: you care. Not in a flashy way, not in a desperate for attention way, but in the quiet, powerful language of self-respect. Because a man who dresses with care is a man who's paying attention to himself, to life, to the world around him. And women are deeply attuned to that. Style to them isn't just aesthetics. It's an energy. It's the difference between a man who rolls out of bed and throws something on, and the man who, even in a simple outfit, moves like someone who has earned his peace. Think of it this way. You walk into a room. She notices you not because you're loud, but because you're clear. Your style doesn't scream, but it speaks. And what it says is, I've been through enough phases to know what fits me and what doesn't. I've outgrown trends, I wear what lasts. I don't need to prove I'm valuable. I dress like I already believe it. That kind of man, the one who chooses his appearance with calm certainty, stirs something in her. It's not about labels. It's about language. The quiet language of discipline, elegance, and presence. And here's the secret most men overlook. Women don't remember outfits. They remember how a man made them feel. But style is the doorway to that feeling. It's the first impression of your emotional energy. It's the silhouette of your presence before you've even spoken. So when she says, "You always look sharp," or asks what cologne you're wearing, it's more than a compliment. It's her way of saying, there's something about you that I want to keep noticing. Because before attraction begins with words, it begins with how you carry yourself when no one is watching. And that is power. Part 3. Her eyes linger because something about you stays. Not every woman speaks with words. Some speak with silence. Some speak with their eyes. You see it sometimes, a glance that lasts a moment longer than necessary. She looks, then doesn't look away. And in that pause, something is exchanged. Not information, not logic, but energy. She won't say it outright. She doesn't need to, because her eyes have already said it. You stayed in my mind longer than you should have. And that is not an accident. Attraction doesn't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it drips slow and quiet through the way she adjusts her hair when you speak, the way she straightens her posture as you walk by, the way her foot tilts toward yours, the glance over the shoulder, the sudden smile after a moment of silence, the space between you, closing by inches. These aren't random. They're deliberate, just not conscious. Because when a woman is drawn to you, her body often speaks before her mouth does. You lean back, so does she. You smile. Her lips curl too, as if pulled by something invisible. That's called mirroring, and it's her nervous system syncing with yours. She may brush your arm in passing, or let her fingers graze the table just a little too close to where your hand rests. She's not rushing toward you, but she's not backing away either. She's inviting you in the most graceful, instinctive way a woman knows, through presence. And here's the quiet truth that most men overlook. It's not your muscles that made her look, not your money, not even your words. It's your stillness. It's the calm with which you sip your drink, the depth in your gaze when you're listening, not waiting to speak, the relaxed way you carry yourself, as if you don't need her attention but she's free to offer it. That balance, availability without neediness, is rare, and she feels it. It makes her curious. It makes her observe. And when her eyes linger, when she sends those subtle, almost imperceptible signals that only the attuned man can catch, she's not just seeing you, she's feeling herself around you. Safe, feminine, interested. She may not know why she looked, but she'll remember that she did. Because the body always speaks before the heart dares to admit anything. Part 4. She trusts your words and seeks your guidance. There's a moment when admiration begins, and it doesn't always look like flirting. It happens when she says, "Can I ask you something?" Not because she's confused, but because she believes you'll know. You've probably heard this before at work, in a conversation with a friend's daughter, or even from a woman you barely know well. She opens up, asks what you think, not about trivial things, but about life, relationships, career, meaning. That moment is not small. It's trust in its purest form. Because women don't seek guidance from just anyone. They seek it from those who have lived and listened. And here's the key. She doesn't come to you because you're charming or charismatic. She comes to you because you're steady. She senses it in the way you pause before you speak, in the way you don't rush to give advice but absorb her words with quiet attention, in how your voice doesn't rise with emotion but stays grounded, like someone who's seen enough storms to no longer fear the rain. That emotional steadiness, that internal compass is incredibly attractive because most people react, but you respond. And in a world of quick fixes, shallow answers, and loud opinions, you become rare. A man like you carries presence, the kind that doesn't dominate but invites. You don't need to preach. You don't need to be right. You just are. And that's more powerful than any argument. Women recognize that, especially those who've dealt with immaturity, volatility, and men who talk more than they understand. They come to you not because you solve their problems, but because when they speak to you, they feel less lost. You give them clarity, not by handing them answers, but by being the mirror that reflects their own strength back to them. That's not just respect, that's reverence. And it builds something far deeper than physical attraction. It builds emotional trust. Because love, in its truest form, doesn't begin with desire. It begins with safety, with the feeling that this man won't shake when the world does. So when she leans in and says, "What would you do?" That's not just a question. It's a signal. She sees something in you worth believing in. Part 5. Fitness in silence when discipline becomes desire. Fianban Qingsu. He's not trying to impress anyone, but his body speaks. Not through flexed arms or loud workouts, but in how he rises from a chair with ease, not effort. How he ties his shoes with quiet grace. How his breathing is steady like someone who knows exactly where he is in the world. And that doesn't go unnoticed. To her, it's not about a gym routine. It's about rhythm. A man whose life has structure. A man who respects momentum, not just muscles. You won't hear him talk about macros. You won't see him checking mirrors. But you can sense it in his posture, in his gait, in the calm strength that trails behind him like a shadow. That's what draws her in. Not the aesthetics, but the attitude. Because deep down, she knows. A man who cares for his body without announcing it likely takes care of other things the same way: his mind, his space, his word. She's not watching for flex. She's observing for consistency. Maybe she's never said it aloud, but she's aware when you reach overhead and she sees the outline of control. When you lift a box like it's nothing, but set it down with intention. When you carry groceries in one hand and peace in the other. That's not just fitness. That's integrity in motion. And it lingers long after you've left the room. Because a man who can carry his own weight literally and emotionally signals something more permanent. Someone dependable. Someone still in tune with life, not worn down by it. You don't need to say you're strong. She's already felt it in how you move through space like you belong there. In how your energy is alert, but not anxious. It's not about biceps or cardio stats. It's about the message your discipline sends without ever speaking. And when she senses that message, that quiet physical clarity, she doesn't just see desire. She sees direction. Part 6. Laughter isn't just fun. It's her way of falling for you. She didn't expect to laugh. But there it was, sudden, full, and completely unguarded. It wasn't about what you said. It was about what dropped away the moment you said it. No tension. No roles. Just two people sharing a moment that didn't require perfection. Humor, when real, isn't about being clever. It's about being present enough to notice something, a glance, a word, a pause, and letting it breathe. The kind of man who brings that out in a woman doesn't rely on punchlines. He understands timing. And more than that, he's comfortable with pauses. There's no rush to impress. No desperation for approval. And somehow, That ease creates a space she didn't know she was craving. Laughter, in that space, becomes more than amusement. It becomes recognition. Recognition that here's someone she can exhale around. Someone who doesn't need to dominate the room or be constantly on. Someone whose sense of humor isn't designed to shield himself but to invite her closer. What's beautiful is how subtle it island. She teases you back lightly, instinctively. She smirks at your delivery, not because it was perfect, but because you weren't trying too hard. And that's the thing. Effortless humor, not rehearsed, not forced, reveals emotional intelligence in motion. You can read the room. You can read her. And that makes her feel understood without needing to explain herself. That's intimacy. Without touching, without even flirting. It's why, when she's alone later, she might think of the way you said that ridiculous thing and smile to herself. Not because it was genius, but because in your company, she felt something rare. Lightness without escape. The world weighs heavy. And a man who can make it feel lighter, even for 5 seconds, becomes unforgettable. So no, laughter isn't just fun. It's a map. And the moment she laughs with you, not at you, she's already a few steps in. Part 7. She remembers the little things because you matter. You didn't think much of it when you mentioned your favorite author, or when you casually said how you like your coffee black, no sugar. Maybe you told her a story about your grandfather's old fishing knife. Just details, really. But later, she brings it up. And in that moment, something shifts. She wasn't just listening. She had noticed. Not in the way someone takes notes, but the way someone makes space for something they care about. That's the quiet magic of memory. It's selective. And when a woman chooses to remember your details, it means her mind has already begun creating a map of you. She's drawn in, not by declarations, but by fragments, the small, almost forgotten pieces of who you are. And it's easy to overlook that. You might not realize what it means when she says, "Weren't you supposed to go hiking this weekend?" Or, "They had your favorite tea, the one with bergamot, right?" But it means this. You've moved from the background into her inner world. Most men try to impress with what they do. But sometimes, what stays with a woman is what you simply are when you're not trying to be anything. She stores those pieces not out of politeness, but because they carry emotional weight. And here's what matters more. When she remembers something you barely recall sharing, she's showing you that your presence has left a mark. It's not about the coffee. It's about belonging. To her attention, to her mental landscape. Because when someone matters to her, she archives them. Not for strategy, but for connection. And the most powerful connections don't announce themselves. They grow quietly, in the corners of ordinary days. So next time she finishes your sentence, or hands you the exact book you once mentioned, don't brush it off. That's not just memory. That's investment. She's not gathering facts. She's building closeness, one remembered moment at a time. Part 8. She creates moments just to be near you. There are moments in life that don't announce themselves. They're quiet, easy to miss, unless you're the kind of man who pays attention to what isn't said. You might not realize it at first. It seems small, the way she begins arriving a little earlier than expected. How her casual messages start ending with, "If you're free, let me know." Maybe it's the way she suggests grabbing lunch at the exact place you once mentioned in passing. Nothing obvious, nothing loud. But not random either. Some women don't express interest with words. They express it through the subtle rearrangement of space and time. When she wants to be around you, she doesn't need grand gestures or dramatic reasons. What she creates instead are shared windows. Pockets in her day that quietly open, just wide enough for you to step through if you're paying close enough attention. It's not just that she likes your company. It's that your presence does something to her rhythm. Around you, she feels a little more grounded, a little less watched, a little more like herself, the version she doesn't always show. So she moves things around, subtly, to stay in that feeling longer. A changed route, a delayed errand, a task she could easily do alone but now conveniently needs help with. None of it screams attraction, and yet all of it speaks. A woman doesn't create these kinds of moments for everyone. They're a quiet offering time, attention, presence wrapped in simplicity, so as not to make things complicated. You may not think much of it when she stops by just for a second, or asks for your thoughts on something she could easily Google. But these are invitations in disguise, not into her calendar, into her emotional world. There's a different weight to the way she includes you in things that don't require anyone else. She wants to share the small parts of her life with you, not because they're interesting, but because they're hers. And letting you in, even just a little, means something has shifted. She's no longer waiting for the universe to bring you together. She's participating, not by force, not out of need, but because she chooses to, by quiet design. Attraction at this level doesn't present itself with fireworks. It reveals itself in presence, in pattern, in the way she keeps showing up, not with expectation, but with quiet consistency. So when you start noticing her there in the places you go, in the timing that aligns, in the invitations that feel effortless, understand what's unfolding. She's not chasing you. She's making room for you. That distinction changes everything. Final reflections and your 7-day awareness challenge. Most men think attraction fades with time, but the truth is, it just changes form. It becomes quieter, more refined, less about appearance and more about presence. What draws her in now isn't the noise you make, but the space you hold. It's in the way you listen, the way you move, how you walk into a room without asking for attention and still keep it. You're no longer trying to be every man. You've become one man, the one who knows who he island. And that is rare. So the next time you question your reflection, remember, women don't just fall for youth. They're moved by depth. They're drawn to stillness. They respond to men who've grown out of the chase and into themselves. Now, let's make this real. Your 7-day awareness challenge. For the next 7 days, do this. Don't ask if they see you. Ask yourself, am I fully here? When you enter a room, check your posture. When she speaks, listen like nothing else matters. When you dress, do it with quiet intention, not performance. And when someone shares time with you, treat it like a gift. Each day, write down one subtle moment of connection you noticed, not something you did, but something she did when she felt safe, seen, or drawn in. By the end of the week, you'll begin to see it clearly. You were never invisible. You were simply too grounded to chase confirmation.